Greetings, fellow Siegers. Hero Siege Season 7 is officially set to launch on June 6th, bringing with it a wave of exciting new content. A brand new seasonal feature, powerful in-game bosses, an all-new class, reworked and newly added items, expanded blood pack support, hundreds of balance changes across all classes, and massive performance, anti-cheat, and server stability upgrades. And that's just the beginning. Be sure you mark your calendars, this season is shaping up to be a fun one. In today's video, I'll be walking you through a complete build guide. We'll cover everything that you need to know from pros and cons, leveling strategies, skill and sub-skill tree progression, attribute allocation, gearing recommendations for budget, mid-game, and end-game setups. I'll also break down optimal mercenary pairings, loot filter tips, and some helpful resources I've created to support you guys on your journey through the season. A full written version of this guide will be available on my website shortly after the video goes live, and as always, timestamps will be available for your convenience. If you're new here, I'm Graxy. I create ARPG-focused content with a strong emphasis on Hero Siege. My channel features build guides, game mechanic breakdowns, how-to tutorials, and content for both new and experienced players. If you enjoy this kind of content, consider subscribing to stay up to date with the latest Hero Siege news and guides. Your support, whether through a like, comment, or small donation, help keeps the channel going strong. Let's dive into it. This guide was created during the closed beta phase of Season 7 and is based on the content and mechanics available at that time. Please note that certain features, balance changes, or other game elements may be updated or modified as the game progresses towards its official release. The information presented here may not fully reflect the final version of the game, and some aspects could be subject to change. While I strive to provide accurate and effective build recommendations, future adjustments by the developers may impact the viability of certain strategies. Always refer to the official patch notes for the latest insights and information. Alrighty, let's talk about the Slicing Throw Butcher for Season 7. Are you ready to turn the battlefield into a blood-soaked frenzy? The Slicing Throw Butcher brings raw brutality and high-speed carnage to Hero Siege, transforming the Butcher into a relentless ranged executioner. Centered around the powerful Slicing Throw ability, this build lets you hurl cleavers towards your enemies with deadly precision, slicing through the waves of enemies before they can even get close. Now let's check out some pros and cons of the build here. First, you do have a very consistent damage progression. Starts off kind of slow, does get better once you hit your augment. You got satisfying meat explosions, you'll pop packs, and you'll have meat just flying everywhere, bones and cartilage and all sorts of stuff. It's cool. Slicing Throw did get a buff by reducing the cooldown. So it did have a 1.5 second cooldown. It's now 1 second. Does feel really nice, especially once you get some additional cooldown recovery on your character. It almost feels like you're not even using a cooldown skill, which is great. And several damage passives are available on the Butcher to really beef up the damage of Slicing Throw. Now for the cons, it does have some of the worst leveling in the game. I personally just don't like it. I really think that it's best leveled by either getting Twink gear or having a friend level with you so that you can take advantage of them carrying you essentially. Now you can farm a relic in the tutorial. We'll talk about that here in a second. Requires managing forms. I don't really like pressing a lot of buttons, and I don't particularly like having a form that removes my ability to recover life. And you also have no built-in damage reduction or defenses, making it a little bit of a glass cannon in that respect. And you also don't have a fresh meat SFX, so that's just a missed opportunity, right? Now let's talk about how we're going to level this. Again, we do have that tutorial relic farming option. Basically what you'll do here is you'll create a character. The very first zone that you get into, you'll hit all the statues and complete all the quests. Once you get to town, you talk to the mayor. The mayor will always give you a relic. Check the relic if it's a good relic that you want to use to kill bosses with. Fantastic. If not, delete the character, make a new one, do it again, and get a different relic. You'll do that until you get a relic that is going to be good for you to level with, right? There's also some that just have really good clear, like Oberfrost just clears everything. It's insane to get early on. That is an option that you can go. Now, if you do want to level with a Slicing Throw ability, I do have a full 1 through 100 Slicing Throw skill tree. I will show that to you here. But personally, I just prefer going the relic route. But again, I will show that. So we are going to put all of our points into Slicing Throw. This skill, again, did get a massive damage buff. So it is going to feel better for clearing, but the bossing is still meh. You'll put 1 point into Unholy Form, 1 point into Fuel the Fire, the rest into Slicing Throw for level 8 through 15. At level 16, we're going to continue putting points into Slicing Throw, and then we will get points into Synergies. Same thing for 24. Make sure that your Slicing Throw is maxed out. And then from here, we're going to start dumping points into our increased attack damage synergies. Not so much the synergies for the skill itself, because we want to get as much of the more multipliers here as we can. So you can see that we dumped 6 points into this skill here. At level 40, same thing. We're going to continue dumping points here
as well as this is when we get our augment, right? So this is where we're going to be able to throw our slicing throw, and it's going to throw additional ones on hit, which is fantastic. Same thing for level 70. We get that additional projectile whenever we throw. It'll go out even farther, which helps you proliferate your damage. It's fantastic. We're going to continue putting points into either synergies or more damage multipliers listed on the skill. And then finally, our level 100 slicing throw tree is going to look like this. I will update the guide to actually have the names of everything. I'll be honest with you, I don't remember what the name of this is, and I don't remember what the name of this is. I know what they do, but I don't actually know their names. I think this one's Ending Fate. One of these is Ending Fate. So I will get those updated to have the names in here so you guys will have them in the written guide that will be available on the website. That's how you would level slicing throw if you actually want to play the skill. It's fine at level 40. It's just getting to level 40 does take a little bit of juicing, and you will feel a little bit slow at times, and you will have to play the character through bosses quite well to get through them. So either way, up to you. Now for sub-skill trees, if you're not familiar with what those are, if you click these plus signs right here, these will open up another window that will allow you to spec your skill to give it either more damage or utility, whatever it may be. So for slicing throw, this is what it's going to look like. Over here on the left side, this is the main augment that we want to get. It makes it so that when we throw our slicing throw, it'll hit an enemy, and then a bunch more will come out, and it'll help us clear so much better. Attribute allocation, while we're leveling, if you're going the slice and throw route, you're probably going to do 2 points strength, 2 points vitality, and then enough energy to feel comfortable. Something to mention here is the strength that you are putting in, if you don't have a decent weapon, probably isn't doing much. I would recommend while you're leveling, it actually might be more beneficial for you to just dump vitality to have enough life to stay alive, and then work on getting additive elemental damage. You can get additive lightning, additive cold, additive fire, just any sort of additive elemental damage, and stack the hell out of that early. That does apply to your skill. It's just not multiplicative. There's not a way to scale it, but you can still put it on the skill, and then every time your slicing throw hits, that damage is applied, right? So that could be another way that you could get through some of that early leveling, but it's going to fall off very quickly as there's not really a way to scale. It's not multiplicative. In that case, you will want to go to strength in order to beef up the attack damage of your weapon. If you're having trouble hitting monsters, dexterity can grant you some attack rating. That can be useful. And then once we get into the end game, we're going to be dumping all points into strength. For gearing, this section is really just designed to give you workable suggestions on what gear to acquire at different stages of the game. We have a budget, we have a leveling section, we have mid-game, we have end game. I'm going to be showing you some different things that you want to look out for during those steps. Starting with leveling, I cannot recommend any particular satanics because there's no way that I can just guarantee that you're going to go into the game and kill certain monsters and drop certain satanics. There are some that will make your leveling process much simple, much more easy. So on the butcher, if you get maybe a relic that you want to use, or maybe you decide you want to play slicing through and you don't mind going and farming out a particular Legion boss or one of the act bosses or whatever it may be, just to try to get some satanics to make your acts 2 through 4 a little bit easier. Totally understand that, but I can't guarantee you're going to get any of those. Rune words, however, getting the bases is really the only hard part here. You get the runes for free just by doing your questing. So be sure you're looking out for bases. This can make your runs much faster, much easier if you find certain bases to make some of these rune words that we're going to talk about here. Okay. So continuing on with weapons, here are some of the affixes that you're going to want to look for on items while you're leveling up. Not so much satanics, but just on your normal through mythic items, right? Things like physical skills, physical skill damage. This is flat damage for physicals. Enhanced damage, this will increase the attack damage of your weapon. Movement speed, attack speed, life and mana on kill, strength, energy, ignore target defense, leech. All of these things are going to be really nice for the butcher to help him grow, right? Help him progress through and get to the level 40 mark. You start popping off as well. Now you can do a couple of things here with rune words. If you go on a demon slayer early, right? The very first weapon that you get on a demon slayer in the tutorial zone is a 3-socket 2-handed sword. That's a D tier. You can make a malice in that, right? You can use this as early as level 17. 15, one or the other. And this will allow you to have quite a bit of attack damage. I think this goes up to about like 50 or so attack damage. It's pretty good early on, just to help you get through maybe that first boss, but it will start to fall off fairly quickly. But this does give you leech. It does give you ignore target defense, which is quite nice to have early in the game. Sky Song did receive a nerf in Season 7. A 200 version, this is an S tier. It's not going to have this much attack damage on it. It's going to be about half of that. So just a heads up. But Sky Song is also a decent option, as it does give you plus skills. It does give you some mana, hit recovery, that sort of thing. For offhands, Scholar, Flesh Ripper is really what you want to go for here, as you do get a bunch of resistances. You get crit chance, you get leech. All of that's really nice. Chest pieces, shadow, gloves, whatever you can find. Boots, get into quick steps as soon as you can. You can make these as early as level 31. So getting quick steps will help you zoom around very quickly. Whatever belt you can find, whatever rings you can find, whatever amulets you can find, and whatever charms you can find. Charms are so damn important to leveling. You can get life percentage, resistances, sustain with life and mana on kill, attributes, leech. You can get so much on charms. Do not forget about your charm, making your highlight filter. That's how we're going to level, just making sure that we find good normal through mythic items, and then any random satanics that you get will just be, a cherry on top, right? Okay, once we hit level 100 and we get into the early game, we're going to talk about some budget items that you can pick up through the character to increase your power and give you that damage progression that we were talking about. So first off, we have weapons. This just gives you a brief explanation about how weapons work for like rune word bases and such. Because we are playing an attack build, your attack damage and your weapon matter, right? The better your weapon, the more damage you do. So here are some decent options. We have Nomad Sandslicer, S tier, really good attack damage. Dante's Demon Blade, also S tier, really good attack damage. Sieve's Mighty Sword, also fantastic. This is a one-hander version, so you can wear a shield with this to get some additional resistances or damage reduction, whatever you might want to wear. These are all fantastic. For helmets, ton of options here. We'll probably stick with Flesh Ripper for quite a while, just because you do get the resistances from it. But there are other things you could go here. If you're having trouble with hitting monsters, you could go Judge Jury Executioner. Assassin's Hood got buffed last season. Let's get some extra skills. You get some up to 30% cooldown recovery. That's fantastic as well. You get the res, you get damage reduction. I'd almost argue that Assassin's Hood better than Flesh Ripper, but there's definitely, any of these will be great. The best one I would say is Legionnaire, just because you get Live by the Sword. This gives you a bunch of movement speed. You get an attack speed. Attack speed doesn't matter too much because our skill is kind of stuck on a cooldown anyway, but the movement speed will really help the character be able to traverse through the zones much better. For chests, the best chest here is going to be Fortress. We're trying to find anything that we can get up until this point when we can find a 4-socket armor with a Zorune. This will create that Fortress with 250% enhanced damage. Absolutely helps you blast, especially if you have one of those S tier weapons paired with this. You're going to absolutely shred. All right, very, very good. You get all resistances on it, get damage reduction. Before that, the next best thing would be Cocoon of the Berserker. And before that, either of these, the Mayhem or the Gladstone Goose, will be serve you just well. All right. For gloves, any of these will serve you fine. I like Siege Breakers, gives you that enhanced damage, gives you resistance, gives you ignore target defense, all great things. But again, you can pick up any of these, or you could wear a Mythic that has a really high amount of enhanced damage on it. For boots, you're probably still going to be rocking quick steps for a bit. Brush fleets are what you want to go into, but you need 3 high runes for that, right? So this does give you agility. Again, it's going to give you some attack speed. Doesn't really do much, but the additional movement speed, it just really helps the build pop off. And then you also get ignore target defense. You get a Deadly Blow. Deadly Blow increases your damage by 50%, right? So you get your Deadly Blow to 100%, which will increase all of your physical damage by 50%. Very, very good. And if you want to go the Arena Master Marchers or the Hermes Boots, these can be decent options as well. They just unfortunately have lower movement speed than the quick steps, and I just like movement speed early on. I think movement speed's king. For belts, we have a ton of options here. Butcher Belt giving you up to 3 skills, bunch of res, some damage reduced by. Root Scored can give you some crit chance and crit damage, ignore target defense. You could build into a bit of crit that can definitely excel your damage. Or I personally like Commander Sash. I think this thing's insane. You get a bunch of resistance, damage reduction, stain, double leech. You just kind of get a little bit of everything with Commander's Sash, right? For rings, wrong one. For rings, we have Cuddle Wedding Bands, Love and Graces. Both of these are great. You got the 2 skills on these now, which is insane. Cuddle's Wedding Band also getting a buff with almost 40% increased movement speed, tons of life. The Cuddle Wedding Bands are insane, but if you want to go into the crit version of the build a bit early, you can run the Elven Grace and get 2 skills, the crit and the crit damage, right? Otherwise, you'll just run a enhanced damage ring. For amulets, same thing. We have Raven's Claw. This is our crit option. Otherwise, you have All Seeing Eye, Calyx Fury, any like attribute amulet you could also wear. There's the Gurag's Pebble. I believe that has a skill on it. It might have some enhanced damage. Can't remember. You could run something like that, just a cheap amulet. But I really think that you kind of want to go into at least a Raven's Claw or an All Seeing. Can't get either of these and just get a really high enhanced damage mythic over like a Gurag's Pebble, for example. Now charms. Charms are very important on physical builds. Very, very important on physical. Do not forget about your crit damage, your enhanced damage. Those 3 things you need to be checking your charms. I don't even care if you're not even playing this build. If you're playing a caster, checking for these charms. They're very important to all phys builds. They can be very expensive. Look for crit chance, look for crit damage, look for enhanced damage. They will make such a big difference in your early game. You can also get resistances. You can get life percent. You can get leech. You can get sustain. You can get all sorts of things on charms. Do not skimp out on your charms. Now, I do have a bunch of satanic charms listed here as well. And these are just going to be great for helping to round out your charms, right? You can have Raiders Torches, Anubis's Ankh Charm. It gives a bunch of life. Heart and Steel Defender, it gives a bunch of life. Just some extra things that we can put onto the character to give it extra juice. Now, once we get into the mid game, I do have an entire written up document talking about how to calculate damage for physical attackers. So if you're not sure how to get more damage on your character, read through this to give you some information on what all the different affixes and stats do that are on items. Because I get a lot of times questions like, yo, what's the best weapon? Or is this better than this? Or is that better than that? And it really just comes down to you don't understand how affixes work on your character sheet. Read through this and you will have a much better understanding of what you need to do in order to get more damage from certain weapons or skills or whatever it may be. Okay. Now, I do have some example setups. Early in the beta, I do not have a way to spawn enhanced damage, crit chance, crit damage charms. I can't get any of that stuff for testing. So all of my testing is without that. And they are honestly a pretty big part of the build that I can't replicate. So here's an assortment of DPS scenarios based on different weapons. The rest of the gear remained neutral, just to best simulate how much the weapon is contributing to your overall DPS. To help players decide what weapon to pick. All can be farmed in hell difficulties. None of the weapons that I have on here are Inferno locked items. Now, looking at helmets, I'm going to be showing you some of the helmets from the budget, right? If you weren't able to pick up Legionnaire yet, Legionnaire can be a good option. Nikita's is going to give us Deadly Blow, up to 40% Deadly Blow. If you are not Deadly Blow capped yet, this could be a good option to help you with that. Or if you're having trouble with hitting monsters, this can give you an absolute shitload of ignore target defense. Now, if you're farming Luna, you might drop a High Roller's Death Crown. This can be a decent option as well if you get some high rolls on it. And all physical skills can apply burn via Molten Paw, the S tier weapon that you'll put on your back bar. So this new Dragon Knight's helmet that you can get from Andrixia, even in hell mode, is really good for the extra damage scaling. You do get the 3 skills and you get up to 40% extra damage. This fire damage doesn't do anything, but you also have 4 sockets on this that you get to play with. Insane Helmet gives you a ton of damage if you're able to farm that out. Chest pieces, if you aren't able to make that fortress set, get into that fortress. You can find fortress bases with plus skills, right? So if you're having trouble finding the Executioner's Cocoon, which is our upgrade from fortress, if you can't get that, find a base, +3, +4, whatever. It's literally 1 Zo-rune. It's the cheapest rune in the game. Make this 5 times if you have to, 1 for every level, right? No problem at all. Heaven's Might, Azarius's Ironthorn Breastplate, either of these can be decent options as well. Alrighty, for gloves, we can see Brawler Fighter Mitts. We want to get these. This Facebreaker roll matters. Try and get a +4. These have been buffed in Season 7. This does have a +2 on it now. And then Alley Boxing Gloves can be a good option before you can find those Brawler Fighter Mitts. For boots, crush fleets, or if you aren't using crush fleets currently, get into the crush fleets. If you are using crush fleets, get into brutal roamers. These things are insane. You can farm these from the rogue chaos towers and the codex of chaos. These can be farmed in Hell 5. These are giving up to 50% extra damage to bleeding monsters. You get attack damage, you get flat damage, you get movement speed, you get skills, you get everything. These boots are fucking god tier. Just make these or get these boots. They're crazy. For belts, you can see we have Gladiator King belt. Recall is gonna be much easier to farm in season 7 just because the mats they drop more often in the actual chaos tower, but they can drop in the season mechanic as well. So Gladiator King belts are going to be much more common. You'll be able to farm one out even in SSF much easier than you could before. Belts of Skulls is a decent option before you can get to that. Butcher's Belt, if you slam a good corruption on it, can be a decent option before that. Otherwise, if you have access to the auction house or Inferno mode, Girdle is also amazing. For rings, there's a lot going on here. Rings are in this place right now where you have Elven Graces, and getting to that next step of ring is tough, right? It's either an Azazel's, which has a low drop rate and can be expensive, but can be dropped anywhere from Hell 1 to Hell 5, or you'll have to get a Pit Fighter's Carnage, right? This is your ED variant, but isn't going to offer you the same damage that you're going to get from the crit versions. And then you also have your boss rings, but the boss rings are stuck behind Inferno. So you're really kind of stuck with Elven Graces at this point. So I would recommend getting Elven Graces with slams every time you find one. There is also Sung Lee's. I currently don't have a picture. I will edit a picture of it in here for us and then get it into the guide. But Sung Lee's can be a good option until you can get into either your Azazel's or your boss ring. For amulets, Griffin's Claw if you're running the crit variant, Eagle's Claw if you're running an ED variant, and Raven's Claw can be slammed with some crazy stuff on it. Any of those will be great. For charms, looking for those crit damage, enhanced damage charms. This one's insane. You can roll charms like this, but good luck. This is an absolutely insane charm. Also, tablets of the Awakening. You can put Umbrans in there for some resistances if you're having trouble with res, because you are going to be most likely using a two-handed weapon, which means you're not going to have the best resistances. So this can help you with that issue. 4-socket tablets aren't going to be cheap, so you might have to suffer on maybe a 2 or 3 for a little while until you can get into a 4. But Umbrans they're free, right? So you can just blast them in there. Now, if you're capped res, you can also do either 4 elemental gems. This will give you a ton of all attributes, or you could do Moonstone, right? Moonstone gems give 7% attack speed. They also have been buffed. They give 7 strength and 7 dexterity. So pretty close to the elemental gems, as elemental gems are 10 each. So you'll have a little bit less of the attributes in other places and a little bit less strength, but you're going to gain some value there with the attack speed, which doesn't really do a whole lot for the slicing throw, but it does allow the animation to come out faster, which, believe it or not, does kind of matter. And then here's more of those budget charms that we were talking about earlier, just to reiterate that even these can be crazy in the end game. Now, if you heard me earlier talking about the Indrixia helmet and Molten Paw is how we get burning on the build for free. We just put this on our back bar. We can swap to it. We can weapon swap to it. We hit our fire enchant buff. We now have the buff for 4 or 5 minutes. We swap back to our front bar. Anytime we hit an enemy, they're going to be burning. This is insane. This means that sources of extra damage to ailments or extra damage to burning, increased damage to burning monsters, any of that stuff will now work with our character. So we are going to be using things like Coffee Container, Indrixia helmet. You could even use the Scorching boots, the Scorching roamers. Those give up to 50% extra damage to burning monsters if you'd like to over the Fizz ones, if you happen to find them. Any of those things can work for the build. Okay, let's talk about in-game min-max. There's a lot that goes into the min-maxing. There's different play styles. People have, different variables. There's slamming items. There's all sorts of stuff. I've created some example setups that we're going to discuss here and show you my gear. But the best build is ultimately the one that works for you. So currently, again, in the beta, I cannot spawn enhanced damage, crit, CDR, any of that stuff. This is a big part of the build that I can't replicate. So the screenshots here just provide proof of concept. I have pretty good damage on this character without having any of those things. Now, I do obviously have good gear on, and that's not like I'm wearing budget gear. But You can see this is our Lucy Day setup with really good charms. We have our relics. We do have Inferno items. We have Rimskin's Inferno. We have the new Chaos Walkers. These are from Inferno. So pretty good. We do swap to double feral. Same gearing here, but we have double feral. You can see what our damage looks like there. It's a little bit more. Then we also swap with a feral and a pit ravager. We also tried the pit ravager. We dropped the Nikita's, got a teleport helm and Gabriel's chest for speed farming. This is what's going to allow us to teleport around without having to use the actual skill to teleport. Just to show kind of what that damage would look like if we want to go for a full speed farm build. And then finally, this version is with the Storm Slayer weapon. This is a new weapon in Season 7. It's a guitar. It has insane attack damage on it, as well as you get some extra damage on there. And then we are wearing the new Indrixia helmet as well for this setup. Looking at relics, for the most part, you're going to want to be running the crit damage relics. Is going to be your best option. So Twin Blade, Nunchucks, Razor Blade, and then we'll also run Commander Sword. This gives us an absolutely insane amount of attack damage. There are some other options you could go if you'd like to get a bit more tanky with like Cake or Mayo Sock or any of that sort of stuff. Completely up to you. If you want to attribute stack with like Magic Mushroom. As far as potions go, there's a ton of options here. Make sure that you get a coffee container. This is really important, especially with the Molten Paw setup. Gives you a ton of damage. But from there, you could go things like Bottle of Sake for the crit damage. Elixir of Death will give you enhanced damage. Right? You can get movement speed from Rad Bull. Any of these comboed together will be more than enough to get you through potions. But we'll have all of these obviously available in the written guide on the website that you can recheck these out and decide kind of what you want to go. For chest augments, Berserker Rage is going to be the most damage. It does decrease your resistances, which is unfortunate, but it is the most damage out of all the options here. Second would probably be Lethal Tempo in this situation, just because it gives you the most amount of crit damage, right? The attack speed doesn't really affect us too much. Tempest Strikes is still going to be doing something, but ultimately I think you either go Berserker Rage just for the most amount of damage, or you go Lethal Tempo if you don't want to go Berserker Rage and don't feel that penalty. You could also go Survivor Shield if you would like to have a oh shit, just in case, if you're in hardcore, or this build does have a little bit of life drain from the actual skill. So this could stop you from just getting destroyed from that, right? Alrighty, let's talk about Mercenaries. Currently in Season 7, Mercenaries generally only have one purpose. They're just Magic Find Warbots. Mercenaries Magic Find is applied to your on-kill Magic Find. So if you were to take a Magic Find item and throw it on your Mercenary, and open up your character screen, you'll see under the Magic Find section that number didn't go up. But if you select Mercenary and then look at that Magic Find value, it did go up. That value is applied to kills that you get on your character. Even though it doesn't show in the actual character section, this is just to show you the difference between the Magic Find that you have on your actual character and the Magic Find that you have on your Mercenary. So you want to be stacking as much Magic Find as you can possibly get on this Mercenary. I cannot stress this enough how important this is. People will come into my stream, they'll message me on Discord, they'll ask in Discord chat, just everywhere. Hey bro, I'm having a hard time finding items. What do you suggest? And I'll ask them, yo, what's your Mercenary look like? And they will have either no items, just no Mercenary at all. Now in Hero Siege, there are 3 mercs, Act 1, Act 3, and Act 6. We do not use the Act 6 merc most of the time. It just doesn't offer enough utility. You get some Arcane Break on it, and it can randomly give you a shield, which is cool. But it just doesn't offer the same utility of the Act 1 and the Act 3 mercs do. So Act 1 merc can generally get the most Magic Find, as it's a Sword and Board class. So you have just more socket availability to put more Magic Find in, as well as they have good supporting items for Magic Find in those slots. But they're going to have a lower level of fanaticism if you are trying to go for that, if you're aiming to go for fanaticism on your character, if attack speed applies to you. The Act 3 merc can use bows. So this is going to leave us in a situation where we have a little bit less sockets, and there's not really a whole lot of bows in the game that provide Magic Find. And again, we are going to be most likely using the Fanaticism bow just to get as much attack speed for our character as we can. The other nice thing about the Act 3 Mercenary is you can get a proc from her that'll give you 100% attack speed. This is really, really nice whenever you're maybe fighting a boss. 100% attack speed is no joke. And if you're a caster character, just go the Act 1 merc. Here's a list of some different weapons for your Mercenary. These are all just going to depend on whether you're taking the Act 1 or the Act 3 Mercenary. Again, Act 3 Mercenary cannot wear maces. It's a bow character, so the Sacred Whip, the Ceremonial Dagger, and the Death Smear, you'll have to use those on the Act 1 Mercenary. But you can use the Valkyrie. That's a really nice bow with Fanaticism on it. Otherwise, just honestly throw any bow that you can because the Mercenary doesn't do damage anyway. And then for the Act 1 Merc, we also have Aurora's Might. This can give us Lunar Aura. This is a ton of resistances. Very nice to have early on to tap those resistances. Otherwise, just pick any of these options. Decimir is probably going to be the most expensive. Throw as many Istrunes in there as you can. This will give you a ton of early Magic Find. Same thing for chests. These are just different levels of Magic Find. So Uppies, Mystic Allure, Heaven's Might, Empires, Military Plate. All these have Magic Find on them. Heaven's Might technically doesn't, but it does have 6 sockets. You could throw 6 discs in here as you if you wanted to. As well as you can see that you get a ton of physical damage and magical damage reduction on the Heaven's Might. Very, very nice chest. And then I did list out a couple of tankier chests like Leviathan's Carcass and Nazarius's. These offer a ton of damage reduction. You can see Leviathan's 1,000 life and 23% life increase. 6 sockets, you could throw a bunch of Isrune in there. Same thing for Azarius, you get damage reduction, you get the all res. The very tanky chest pieces that you could throw on your Mercenary to try to get him to survive some of those hits in Inferno and even some of the Ubers in Hell 5. Same thing applies to helmets. Here's some different levels of Magic Find helmets. You also get physical and magical damage reduction and up to 30% all res on a Harley Quinn. Very nice helmet for your Mercenary. And lastly, the offhands. Once again, just different levels of Magic Find. Leprechaun's Greed is an SS tier. It's going to be the most expensive, the most rare. However, you can't find a Novice Tower. This thing's insane for just being an S tier. You have a increased Magic Find roll. You have an increased Magic Find based on level. You also have up to 4 sockets to put Is in it. That is a ton of Magic Find for an S tier. Again, socket any of these with a bunch of Is runes. Is are honestly quite common, so it's not going to hurt you to pick up some of these items early and then swap into different ones later on. Because our goal is to get Magic Find on our Mercenary as quick as we can. After hitting level 100, hero levels and hero seeds can offer some significant power boosts, but which nodes do you take first? Knowing which nodes to prioritize can make a big difference. There are several effective strategies for optimizing your hero level tree, depending on your character's current progression and gear. This section includes a detailed written guide outlining popular approaches used by the community. If you prefer a visual walkthrough, I do have a YouTube video available with full timestamps. And just to give you a quick scroll through of kind of what that written guide looks like, we go through all the different setups that are available, whether you're an attacker or a caster, and what that would look like if you tried to prioritize certain things and why you might prioritize certain nodes over others. After level 100, glyphs can be socketed into your hero level tree and offer additional utility to enhance your gameplay. Currently, glyphs do not provide direct player power, making their selection entirely preference-based, depending on the content that you wish to engage with. I do have a full YouTube video that describes how glyphs work, so you can get a bit more information if you're not sure what glyphs look like, how to level them up. If you scroll down on this guide, you will find additional information. This will show you every glyph at their level 0, 6, and 8 value, as well as it'll tell you how much it increases by per allocated attribute in its range, its current attribute type, and a description. Alrighty, let's talk loot filters and more specifically league start filters. Now, I'm gonna be pretty blunt about this because I want to make sure that I get my point across so that it's clear. I cannot make loot filters before Season 7's patch actually hits the game. I can't do it in Season 7 beta. I can't do it in the Season 6 client. There is no way that myself or anybody can get you a filter before the season starts for the most part. Now, I did make a video in Season 6 that talks about the loot filter, highlight filters for any class in the game for starters. There is technically a way to set it up before the season starts because the patch actually hits about an hour before the game goes live. So there's single player, you can jump into single player on the new season and you can quickly make a filter and put those on a notepad, whatever you need to do, and then just import them whenever the season actually starts. So I do have a full video explaining how all of that works and what you will need to do. So if you're not sure how that works, be sure you check out that video. And then of course I do have the full written guide that explains every single archetype and what I put on each of those archetypes so that you can kind of practice. You can jump into Season 6, pretend that it's, league start day, make your filter really fast. You can get familiar with where everything is at. And it's honestly quite easy. Now, if you're a newer player, you're just not really sure how the loot filters work. Loot filters in Hero Siege are not Path of Exile filters, right? They're not going to hide 95% of the items on the ground. You're not going to start seeing that until you get later into the game. So you are going to still see quite a bit of items when you first start the game, and it's going to feel like the loot filter is not working, but it is. As well as the highlight filter is the main part of the loot filter. The highlight part is actually highlighting affixes on items that you care about. right? So whenever you're playing through the game, you'll see this giant beam, and I don't know what color it is. I think it's orange, but it'll be like an orange beam and an orange highlighted item. You'll be like, oh, that's highlighted. I should probably pick that up. Yes, it's because your highlight filter is highlighting that item. So the highlight filter is very, very important. The loot side of it, not as big of a deal. If you don't want to do all of that for your starter filter, there are in-game presets that you can use for both the filter and the highlight section. So you're simply just going to click Escape, Options, Gameplay, and Loot Filter. This is going to make your screen look like this right here. On the right side, you can see all the highlight presets and the different archetypes, like if you're playing a physical attacker, or you're playing a cold caster, or an arcane caster, or a life stacker, or any of that stuff. All of that will be in here. You can just click on it and go, right? Same thing for the loot side of it on the left. If you're in normal difficulty at the very start of the season, you'll be in normal. You just click normal. Once you hit Nightmare, you'll click Nightmare. Once you hit Hell, you'll click Early Hell, right? And you just kind of level with both of these together. And then as you play, you're welcome to click on these and go in and, add some different stuff into them if you would like to. And then of course you have in-game filters. I don't have a way to give you an in-game filter until the season actually starts. So once we get the season going, I've played for a couple of days. At that time, I will be able to provide some in-game filters. And our last section is additional resources. This section really walks you through the best strategies for each phase of your journey. If you're a newer player to Hero Siege, be sure that you read through these first few sections just to gain a better understanding of Hero Siege mechanics and how things work. And also check this section a couple of times before season starts, as I do plan to add some things to it. First up is our beginner guide. If you're newer to Hero Siege, I have a 2.5-hour video that goes through all of the basics from making a character and installing the game to how Ubers work. Be sure you check that video out. There are a few things that you need to know before you get started, like equipping your companion. Everyone gets one of these for free. Be sure you set up your highlight filter. In the video, I do have a full section on the highlight filter. Configure any controls. Here's currently my settings if you would like to copy what mine looks like. I also suggest that you change your minimap hotkey to tab. This will make your minimap overlay permanent, like D2 or Path of Exile, instead of it being something that you have to constantly press. Swap your game to 60 FPS. Even if you have an insane PC, trust me, you're not going to see a difference in your frames, but your performance will be much better. And in order to assign skills, you actually click on the right click skill, and that will open up a menu to assign your skills. Now, there are no required quests in Hero Siege. I do, however, recommend that you complete your Act 1 normal quests. Those are going to give you a mid rune, a ton of the lower runes, a movement speed charm, and a movement speed potion. These are all really nice to have while you're leveling up, especially for being just Act 1 normal. The same thing will happen in Act 1 Nightmare. You'll get up to a Vex rune as well as a bunch of low runes. And then once you get into Act 1 Hell, you'll get a few mid runes. Same thing for Act 2 Hell, and Act 3 Hell is when you will actually get your first high rune. So those are the quests that I recommend that you complete. In Hero Siege, there's additive damage and skill damage. Additive damage is weapon damage. It is damage that you're gaining when your weapon physically hits an enemy or strikes an enemy. This can be from a ranged weapon, a wand, a sword. It doesn't matter. It's your weapon physically striking a monster is additive damage. It is not multiplicative damage. Skill damage, however, is multiplicative damage. It is giving your skill base damage. So to give you an example of this, there's a skill in Hero Siege called Lightning Fury. It's quite common in a lot of ARPGs. You basically take your big hammer, you strike a mob with it, and a bunch of lightning goes out everywhere and chains to a bunch of monsters. If you had both additive lightning damage and lightning skill damage, the additive lightning damage would be affected when your weapon struck the monster, right? And then the skill damage would be affecting the lightning's damage. So there's two different instances of damage that's happening on that strike. Generally speaking, additive damage is great early game, absolutely terrible in the end game because there's no way to scale it. And skill damage is a little less effective early, but becomes very, very potent as you level through the game and as you get into the end game. If you haven't checked out the Season 7 patch notes, that is available in here. There is an official Hero Siege wiki that's launched recently. This has a ton of information. There's a link to that. Now, once you hit level 100, I do have a section here talking about the early game, giving you progression tips and tricks, because a lot of people are expecting, some mapping system or monolith system, or they're expecting to go somewhere and do repeatable content. And Hero Siege doesn't directly work that way. It has a bit of a different system. So this talks about that system a bit in video form, or I do have the full written guide available here. You can read through all of it to get an idea of what we should be doing in order to progress that early game. Be sure you bookmark the Hero Siege Helper website. This has an absolute ton of information in it that's very accessible. I use it all the time. If I need to know, I don't know, like what key goes to what dungeon, I'll just pop this up really quickly and it helps you find that. Here's a YouTube video that talks about this entire website and everything that it offers. He has updated it, I think, a couple of times since the last time I reviewed it. There might be a couple of things here and there that are extra, but very good website. Be sure you bookmark it.
And that wraps up this build guide. I hope it helps you get the most out of your Hero Siege experience this season. Whether you're pushing through the early levels or tackling the end game, this setup should give you a solid foundation to build from. If you found this guide helpful, please consider leaving a like and sharing it with others in the community. Drop any questions, feedback, or build suggestions in the comments below. I always enjoy hearing from you guys and helping where I can. I'll also be streaming live on Twitch at twitch.tv/Graxy_TV. You can come check me out there, ask me any questions, and would love to see you. Don't forget to check the description for the full written guide and any additional resources mentioned in the video. And if you'd like to support the channel, even a small donation goes a long way in helping me continue creating quality Hero Siege content. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications so you don't miss any future guides, updates, or seasonal news. Thanks for watching, and as always, happy sieging.